Hello class, my name is Saria, and today I will be presenting Chapter 10, Discourse Analysis, taken from our textbook, Introducing Course Design in English for Specific Purposes. Discourse analysis greatly influences ESP knowledge and course design. In this chapter review presentation, I will be going over the ways in which discourse analysis has influenced ESP, and we'll be covering the following areas of discourse analysis. These include the definition of discourse analysis, approaches to discourse analysis and needs analysis, and lastly, students and discourse analysis. So now let's first define discourse analysis. Discourse analysis can be defined or classified as the central element of ESP. Basically, discourse analysis involves the analysis of text, whether spoken or written, in terms of structure, language, and vocabulary, and current approaches to English for specific purpose of course design. Discourse analysis of text from the target communicative situations play an important role. This chapter brings out that for the purpose of course design, we need to distinguish between the pedagogic types of discourse analysis and research types of discourse analysis. Discourse analysis examines patterns of language in regards to different texts. Further, it looks at the relationship between the language and the social and cultural context that is used. Discourse analysis also takes into consideration the ways language presents in the different views of the world and in the different ways different people understand it. In covering the approaches to discourse analysis, we would like to talk about the goal. The goal of ESP course is to focus on communication and language use in specific target situations. Therefore, one must use a description of specialist discourse, and these can either be formal, in-depth analysis, or informal investigations. Formal discourse analysis take a lot of time. Yes, they can be very time consuming. Also, for this, one would need an expertise analysis because this is an expert job. On the other hand, informal discourse analysis is not as detailed and it's less rigorous. And although it's not as stringent as the formal, it does have value. And if it doesn't do anything, it will at least allow practitioners and students to be more aware in regards to ESP. Here we have, taken from the book, Task 10.1. It gives a list of questions that you would probably ask when doing an informal discourse analysis. Okay, so as mentioned earlier, formal analysis are time-consuming. They call for expert analysis, and there are several different approaches. The first one listed here is genre analysis. Now, this is the most common discourse analysis, and it was covered in detail in Chapter 9. Genre analysis of text plays an important role in ESP course design. A genre basically is a type of text, so by analyzing the regular features or range of the text types or genres, this can inform course design. Genre focuses on identifying the types of text within a field and also identifying their common textual features. Conversation analysis takes several forms. Basically, stretches of authentic spoken conversation are recorded, transcribed, and analyzed from a given perspective. Conversation is also typically analyzed for turn taking and how conversation is structured. If an ESP course has a focus on oral skills, this would be useful, but this type of analysis is extremely time consuming and might not be a practical course of action. Now let's talk about discourse and pragmatics. Pragmatics focus on the meaning of utterances in relationship to context in which they occur, and it examines the relationship between form and function. Speech act theory is one influential perspective in pragmatics. This form of pragmatics, one would be generally looking at how action is achieved with words. So therefore the speech can be direct, like open the window, or indirect, like it's cold in here. Moving along to discourse and grammar. Typically with this, text from the target situations are collected and analyzed for grammatical and lexical features. And this in turn can be translated into course games and activities. Now, when focusing on grammar from a discourse perspective, it's important to have cohesion because it addresses large parts of communication with emphasis on the level of grammar needs being reflected in the ESP course. Cohesion basically refers to how a text is structured based on phrases, clauses, and words. This type of discourse analysis of a text would reflect both grammatical and lexical cohesion. Grammatical cohesion involves preference, and lexical cohesion focuses on the relationship between lexical items and typically refers to repetition, synonymy, and collocation. Now, intercultural and rhetoric focuses on the cultural variations between the language 1 and the language 2 texts. Basically, in this analysis, L1 and L2 texts are completed or are compared. Discourse analysis frequently occurs in needs analysis. Basically, in this analysis, the course designer would be collecting information about the target communicative situations and analysis, and then translate this into teachable sections. For example, the figure that I've copied from the book, figure 10.4, shows the suggested steps that an ESP course designer could take to use the discourse analysis approach. It talks about identifying most important texts in the target communicative situations, the spoken and as well as written. You use informants such as students, disciplinary experts, past students, and other stakeholders. Then collect a representative sample of these. Organize them into formats suitable for analysis. Spoken texts need to be transcribed. Written text should be in an electronic format. You would look for distinguishing aspects of the text, compare the text for similarities, decide on which approach to discourse analysis, whether it's genre, conversational, pragmatic, lexical, grammatical, or intercultural rhetoric. Then conduct the analysis, record most of the important results, and use focus of the analysis as an organizing strand in a syllabus, for example, grammar, vocabulary, conversation strategies. Okay, now covering students and discourse analysis. To get the students to become discourse analysis, one can train them in techniques of discourse analysis. And after being trained, they can collect samples of discourse from the target communicative situations and apply them in their analysis. In the textbook, Woodrow mentions Riggenbach and how he talks about the stages that he suggests to be used when training the students for discourse analysis. He suggested the stages predict, plan, collect data, analyze data, generate analysis, and review. So what did we learn? To sum up this chapter, we discussed the importance of discourse analysis in ESP course design. We also presented the major approaches to discourse analysis and discussed these in relationship to course design. And finally, we went over an example of discourse analysis as it typically is used in ESP. So I hope that you all enjoyed the presentation. However, I would like to leave you with one question. After reading Chapter 10 and viewing the presentation, which approach to discourse analysis would you use, and what aspect would you focus on in the analysis? Thank you again. Have a wonderful week.